If you've chosen this path of becoming a writer, you probably have a couple screws loose up there. Let's just be honest here. And today, Philip Roth, a literary goat, is going to speak at length on why all writers should go to therapy, but not to improve their mental health. Because what do you think we are? A bunch of weaklings? Nah, to improve our writing. That's why writers should go to therapy. And if you guys are maybe a little bit triggered right now or don't understand, I want to show you guys some testimonials from authors who went to therapy, because there are some goats who are success stories from therapy, such as Ernest Hemingway, David Foster Wallace, Sylvia Plath, and Anne Sexton. We want to be like them, right? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Henry Miller and Anais Nin, and they were together and decided to start seeing the Freudian psychoanalyst Otto Rank, who's behind Nin right there. And FYI, Rank is the best person who broke off from Freud, better than Jung and Reich and all the others. He wrote a great book that all writers should read called Art and Artist. I'll put a link down in the description below. But Nin connected so deeply with her therapist, Otto Rank, that she decided that why not explore her sexuality with him and do therapy at the same time. Another success story. And if you guys don't know, here on Right Conscious, I talk about the best books and authors of all time. But more importantly, I help activate authors and thinkers so that we can kick off a literary renaissance. And honestly, enough for me. Let's now hear from Roth. If I hadn't been analyzed, I wouldn't have written Port Noise Complaint as I wrote it, or My Life as a Man as I wrote it, nor would the breast resemble itself, nor would I resemble myself. The experience of psychoanalysis was probably more useful to me as a writer than as a neurotic, although there may be a false distinction there. It's an experience that I shared with tens of thousands of baffled people, and anything that powerful in the private domain that joins a writer to his generation, to his class, to his moment, is tremendously important for him, providing that afterwards he can separate himself enough to examine the experience objectively, imaginatively, in the writing clinic. And there is a lot to cover here, and I first want to dial in on this idea that therapy helps you connect to your generation, to your class, to consensual reality, to the median person out there in the world. And this is a brilliant idea because many writers have told themselves a lie. Wordsworth was really the first person who did this. And writers will say, I'm writing this for the people. I'm writing this for my mom or my dad or the everyday average Joe. And the everyday average Joe isn't reading transformative literature or really any literature at all. Let's just be honest here. And that's kind of one of the funny lies of the marginalized novels community, that these authors and the publishing houses claim that these voices are being elevated and these communities are reading them. But in actuality, when you look at the numbers, it's just suburban white women supporting the whole literary fiction industry as it exists right now. That's a whole other story. But nonetheless, we have this fantasy that we actually are writing for the people. And if we actually did write for the people, we would end up with something really dumb and diluted. But there is another class of people who we could call post-literate, who maybe aren't active readers and are reading Don DeLillo right now, but if they were presented with something that seemed interesting, they would activate like a Manchurian candidate and love the work. And so with things like therapy and other modalities that I talk about on this channel, we are trying to get down to the level, and not saying that we're at a different level. We're at the level of living in this fantasy world in our heads, which is no better than anyone else. We're just artists. And so our job is to get back to that level so that we can interface with that reality. And so therapy is first and foremost important for this, to do this, because it humbles you. It takes a bit of pride away, because many writers believe, because we live in our own head and we are artists and we are different than the median person, that we are better or divergent or whatever. But in therapy, you aren't going to be talking necessarily about these nuanced things. You're going to be talking about the human condition, the stuff that we all suffer from. A family, your family not believing in you, trauma, your anxieties, like these types of things. And I also have to make this distinction, because I don't want anyone to go to betterhelp.com and book an appointment right now, because that would be a terrible idea. Because psychology, therapy has been overrun by a horde of terrible therapists let me say. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has become the norm in therapy. And in terms of statistical data and effectiveness, it is the best in the sense that if Johnny is screaming or Amy has anxiety, CBT has a higher success rate in treating that than classic psychoanalysis or other things. But as writers, CBT doesn't really mesh very well because I don't care necessarily about the triggers and changing the behavior. I care about the mythology, the axiomatic root, the spiritual problem and root of the behavior. And so cognitive behavioral therapy most of the time cuts all of that out. And so many people who have been trained in the last, couple decades or are just your average therapist are going to be giving you something like that. And it's really not going to be too much of use for you, especially in this context. And so instead, I would maybe ask you guys, if you're thinking about this, and I think it would be very valuable to think about, you don't have to go to therapy necessarily, but to meet people who are more into classic psychoanalysis, Jungians, Lacanians, Reichians, people who have decades of experience in that, but have also synthesized those classical systems with different modalities of religion, spirituality, and other things that you may be interested in so that you can take it really far. I know that in my Substack, there are multiple therapists in there, and some of them have come to some of my book clubs. I know I've interacted with a lady named Kim in my book club who is a Jungian, and she is amazing. The way she talks about books and brings out so much in my heart that it's amazing to hear her talk and break down characters and all of this stuff. And I couldn't imagine if she was my therapist or someone's therapist. Her clients must absolutely love her. And so those are the type of people that you need, people who can hear your heart, aren't just going to try and fix you, and have a deeper connection to these kind of larger things. Because realizing your place in that is valuable for writing because you are the conductor. You are the one who is creating this web of characters who have this psychological makeup. But if you do not understand your own psychological makeup and your mythology and your spirituality and the root and trauma and core of all of these things that led you to this point, then you're leaving something on the table. And many people throughout history have been able to do this automatically. But I believe because of digital technology, we no longer necessarily have the time, the solitude, the emotional capacity to really dive into those emotions ourselves. And Otto Ronk's book, Art and Artist, Creative Urge and Personality Development, as I said earlier, Ronk was Freud's favorite protege, more so than Jung and the others. He explores this. When you read this book, you're going to be surprised that while discussing art and the creative urge, he's just going on and on about mythology and all these different things. And when you look at Jungian archetypes, many of them are connected back to mythology. I don't need to get into this, but I also know I remember reading this book while I was working security for a Bong convention in Las Vegas at the convention center. It's called The Tree of Life by Israel Regarding. He's just kind of like a classic occultist in the 20th century, but in his occult organization, I think it was called the Golden Dawn, I remember him saying that you had to get, before you could join, 100 hours of psychoanalysis by a Jungian or Freudian or someone like that before you could join his group. And it always kind of stuck with me that if you don't understand yourself, if you don't understand how you are just like everyone else, and also the deeper levels of your soul, as I was just discussing, then why would I trust you to lead me on this journey? Because writing is really weird, you guys. Writing almost feels like yoga. So trust me on this analogy. I had my yoga teacher, Simon Borg Olivier, who I did my teacher training under. He was super into statistics and other things and like anatomy. And he had these yoga gyms. And so he kept a record of how many people came back to yoga class, like over the course of a year or even just one class. And you realize that like 90% of people who joined ended up leaving after a month. And so he had their contact info and started contacting them. And they were basically saying that it wasn't right for their body. And I know the same is for like jujitsu classes and many other things. Same with weightlifting. And it's not just a consistency thing, but that like the Western body isn't attuned to kind of the rigors and the mentality of a classical vinyasa system. And so when you see people like Simon or me doing crazy handstands and all this other stuff on Instagram, we are kind of these outliers. And I've been really thinking that like writers are the same way. So I see Ernest Hemingway and some of these other people I mentioned, and maybe they didn't get therapy. Maybe they weren't the outliers. They didn't do X, Y, or Z, but it was almost their destiny to do what they were doing. And they had this deep will, as Otto Rank talks about, this like infinite will, and they just made it happen. But you and I maybe don't have that. And so we have to find whatever we can get on our side to get closer, or excuse me, to kind of fuel our will. I wish I could just go drink and screw around like Hemingway and Cormac McCarthy and others and become this great writer. But in actuality, my talent and other things aren't there. So leaning into some of these more esoteric, eccentric, or even more systematic approaches might actually be necessary for us to be able to integrate slowly into this role that we are becoming. For instance, if I wanted to do yoga and I was out of shape, well, I would have to know that it would be hard and I would have to modify and keep coming back even if I knew it was hard and suck for years. And then I could finally be good at what I wanted to do. And the same goes with writing. But what's interesting about writing is that yoga is I could objectively see where you were at and what you were struggling with. But with writing, many writers like hide away and never really put themselves out there and have scapegoats and say, oh, it's the publishing industry sucks or no one reads anymore and like all this other stuff. And so I think that psychoanalysis can give you a very good depth and a good launch pad to kind of move into all this stuff with. Because you also have to remember about if you're talking to someone who is a more experienced and expansive psychoanalyst, they are going to be discussing sexuality with you, family trauma. And as I've talked about countless times before, as Rilke said, any of our childhoods has enough creativity, has enough potential in it for story that we could never finish it. And so that's why so many people go back to the well in childhood, and so many authors, so many great authors, honestly, through all their books are just writing about things that happened to them through the first 18 years of their lives. And so I think many of these kind of more neurotic characters like Cormac McCarthy, David Foster Wallace, who sat and thought about these things and were sensitive and emotional and like hyper fixated, really understood that stuff and could apply it to story. But if you were maybe not like that, then being able to have some reference points to some of that, I think, can open the floodgate to being able to catch bigger fishes in terms of creativity. And so if you find someone, like I said, who's a little bit more expansive, that psychoanalysis isn't necessarily to fix a problem, it's to help expand you. It's like working out or something. I mean, but like I said, those people are hard to find and it might take some trial and error and you might have to think about it. And probably none of you guys are going to do it, and that's okay. But I think that this is just a really interesting concept, and it's for sure kind of a subjective approach. Like I talk about how there's objective, the writing community, especially like the genre community and the hustle culture community, have these objective frames. I'm going to sit and write 8 hours a day, yada, yada, yada. But imagine applying an objective frame to a subjective practice like art. It almost never works. If you're building a business, it's going to work great. That's all logical. That's all number crunching. But if you're doing something subjective and you try to apply logical frames, which many people do, it's going to fail. And so I've found in my own writing and with this YouTube channel and my other creative pursuits that doing other random subjective things that maybe don't have a direct correlation to what I'm doing actually create the biggest gains. And as someone who dives deep into authors' lives and their biographies, it's very same. And this is what the muse is about, right? Like when a man or a woman has a muse, that's not discipline. They're spending all this time having sex or fawning over someone, but suddenly they have all this energy to complete more work and their work gets better. It's a subjective practice, relationships, love, having children. Why does that make you better? Who knows? It's magic. And so that is the word, everyone. If you guys want to support this channel, I have a book club, courses on all different type of stuff, books and writing over on Substack. I have my own writing over there. There is free and paid content, enough free or paid content that you could get lost for weeks in there. There's hundreds of hours total of content over on my Substack, plus a book, at least a book's worth of writing, if not more. And so thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you, Philip Roth, for elevating me and elevating others. And I will see you guys very soon in the next video.